Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. Yesterday I did lots and lots of little bits while I was watering, and when I started putting them together I realised I had an awful lot of little bits and so I had to split it in two. So I've got to do a quick front end and back end to put the other bits together, if you know what I mean. Anyway, I thought I'd start with that. The second one's opened, the third one's splitting, so by tomorrow I'll probably have all three Laelia Ancet blooms in. Okay, so let's get going with the other bits and pieces from yesterday. This one never comes out to play as well. It's a young plant. When I got it, it had that one new cane, the tiny one there on the right, and the one at the back there was a new growth pushing on, which when I compared the size I thought, God, that's done really well, that new growth. But the latest new growth is even bigger, yeah, bigger and stronger. Now whether that's big enough to bloom or not, I don't know, because I know absolutely nothing about this plant. And again, what I was saying about bug damage, when that was a tiny new growth, the bugs got on the bud, so they affected the first two leaves, and I've got to live with those marks on those leaves until that cane drops its leaves. Now I'm stuck with it. But the leaves that pushed on after that were bug free, so they're nice and clean. Got a lovely bronzy tinge to them, and that's definitely not a light tinge, that's a coloration that's obviously supposed to be there because it lives here, and that's not a lot of light. And this thing, I don't know what the hell this is supposed to do. This has got a strange name. This is Bifreniana or something. Bifreniana harrisoniae. But this is supposed to go quite dormant, and the bulbs, is another blooper, are supposed to go a bit shriveled in the winter, and you are supposed to keep it drier. Now that's not a true dormancy apparently, but although it's not getting much water, it misses a watering session, so it now gets every other one, and my dailies are every 2 or 3 days depending on weather. So if I get 3 dull days on the trot with the low light levels that I've got, I know they won't be dry until that, after that 3rd day. So what is absolutely every day without fail in the summer at the moment is every 2 or 3 days, and this one skips one. So this is more like every 5 or 6 days, and it just gets a little bit of water. It doesn't get drowned, but it is pushing a new root out. Now I don't know whether that's normal or not. It's amazing that I've got all the time in the world. I could go and do a lot of research on that plant, but I don't. Don't ask me why, I just don't. I just sort of think, you can get on and do your own thing. And it looks like right at the base of that bulb, literally right at the base, is something. Now, in the light, can you see it? Can you tell what it is yet? Come on then, let's start the guessing game. What do you think that's going to be then? Doesn't look much like a root, bearing in mind that's what a root looks like when it pushes out, but there again it's in the same place. So what have we got then? New growth? Probably. Again, a relatively young plant, has nice strappy leaves on it, nice deep green, I like that. But the bulbs do drop their leaves eventually. That had 3 bulbs on it when I got it, the 2 leafless ones and that one over to the right. So the other 3 bulbs are mine, so obviously I got a really nice big one there, quite a nice big one there, and a not such a big one there. But yeah, that was a progression. I think the little one came first, then the medium one, and then that big one pushed on later. Single leaf bulbs, but yeah, strange little plant. I'll be interested to see what the hell the flowers look like, because I haven't got a clue. We'll wait and see. I'm sure it'll flower one day. Yeah, nice little plant. Unusual leaves. Given the type of orchids I grow, I would say that's the only one that's got leaves like that. Yeah. Nice. Now at this time of year, a lot of my dendrobiums fade into the distance and never come out to play. They're never on film. This is Dendrobium findleyanum, and it does have very unusual shaped bulbs. It has like canes with, it almost looks like individual pseudo bulbs at each leaf joint, and I certainly haven't got anything else like that. Now I've got a lovely kiki coming on. In fact, the kiki's now branched into 2, so that's going to be a nice little new plant soon. Probably out of focus because I'm not concentrating. There's a few leaves dropping on the oldest canes. If you look at the size of the canes that were on it when I got it, they're the leafless ones. And then it pushed out these 3 canes, and I was over the moon. Because first of all, it meant I could really see how these canes develop these bulbous nodes. But then this year, we grew these 3. That makes them look silly, doesn't it? But it's a progression. If you buy a young plant, you would expect it to get better as it pushes on. Now, this may be the limit. This may be the biggest that this dendrobium can grow. And next year's growth canes will be a similar size to this. They might be a little bit smaller. They might be a little bit bigger. But they should at least be around that size. So I've got 3 really good canes on here with, the bulbous bits literally at each leaf joint. They are unusual. Lovely glossy green leaves. That's a smashing dendrobium. It is currently resting. So why have I got it out to water it? Because it gets a little bit, just a little bit. And this one is perfect for giving a little bit of water to, because it has actually got some bare roots, that aren't actually in the moss. So that's a perfect place to water this dendrobium while it's resting. I can just pour a little bit of water on the bare bark where there are a few roots. And the main root system is in moss. If I water that, the moss gets wet, and then it'll stay wet for a day or 2. So that's not what I want. It's supposed to be resting. So a perfect one to be able to rest, because it's got aerial roots. I can just give I always give my kiki a water. That, even though it's attached to the plant, is trying to be kept growing. I'm not resting the kiki. That needs to grow on. But yeah, so this is in an ideal state to rest, and it'll get its proper winter rest after New Year's, because my son's away at the moment. He's been down for Christmas. He's gone away for a bit, and he'll be back before he goes back to uni. So the bedroom that I want to use will be in use for its true purpose, people. But once he goes back to uni, then all my resting dendrobiums are going to go up into that room and get the best rest I can give them. And we'll see what result we get. Because again, it's a good healthy plant, but it's never bloomed. So, you listening? Blooms on you this early spring. Otherwise you're in trouble. Okay, I just thought I'd look at that dendrobium as it's out to have a trickle. This is another one never gets filmed unless it's actually in bloom. This bloomed for me once, pushed up 2 blooms on what was the latest growth at the time. And then I started getting disappointed because it pushed up another good strong new growth. Absolutely superb. And the sheath went brown and shriveled, and I thought, you toad, I thought you were going to bloom on that one. And hey presto, right at the top, it's now pushing out green. So it looks like it is going to bloom. I'm not taking it all back, because you worried me. I thought if you're going to push out lovely big strong new growths like that and not bloom on them, there's no point in having you. But again, these need quite high light. It gets the light it deserves. It's got a lovely new growth coming there. Another new root pushing out. And it's got a good root system. Nice and bright green at the moment because it's just been drowned. But yeah, so it looks like it is going to bloom on that sheath. I'm pretty sure there's definitely green coming out the top there. So I'm just thinking of one of my viewers who actually gets annoyed by the beeps of the fogger. Well, you're in for some today. It's doing it. First time in months. Yeah, so I mean, it's a good plant. I'm pleased with the plant. It likes its mount. Good attached roots as well as aerials. And the beauty of that is it can dry fast, get watered again, dry fast, get watered again, which is what they like. Got 1 dead root on there, but that happens. Older roots die, new roots come on to replace them. And again, a creeping rhizome that I wish would split. In fact, it has split, come to think of it, because the growth that's got the sheath that's gone green is actually off to the right of the main rhizome, whereas the next one went off to the left and is branching or pushing on again. So it has got 2 leads. It would be nice if it shot out near the back as well and pushed a third one out. The more leads you get, the more new bulbs you get. The more new bulbs you get, the more potential you've got for multiple blooms. So same with cattleyas. If they've got a single rhizome with a single new growth, that's the only blooms you're going to get. If you can get it to split off and start separating, all well and good. Okay, I've known some people actually put a nick in the rhizome behind the latest sort of 2 or 3 bulbs and actually put a cut in it. Don't cut it off, although I've known people do that as well. The plant responds to the damage behind the cut on the oldest part and fires off the dormant eyes. But although it sounds like a good idea and I've seen it work, it's also a hell of a good way to get an infection into your rhizome. So weigh up your pros and your cons and use your own judgment. I haven't done it, by the way, but I have got a couple in mind that I might give it a go. Anyway, Brassivola nodosa, blooms to come, we hope. So let's all cross everything, whatever you cross. This is my other Brassivola. This is a hybrid. This is David Sanders. And you can see this growth here actually pushed a sheath that dried. This growth pushed out a sheath much, much bigger and was full of promise. And it's still blind. There is no swelling at the base of that sheath. I mustn't poke them about. Like I said before, don't keep squeezing your sheath to see if there's buds in there, because you may have just squashed those tiny embryo buds and ruined your chances of blooms. But given that the nodosa had a dry sheath and has suddenly decided to push a shoot out for blooms, maybe this one will do the same thing, because that is a good sheath. You know, compared with the previous one, it's a good sheath. But no sign of buds yet. But that's the new growth coming on there, which is a good size already, and the leaf hasn't even opened yet. That's still in its closed up state. So if it doesn't push anything out on that sheath, maybe it will on that growth. Because again, not bloomed for me yet, this one. A guy had one of these with 3 bulbs and 2 beautiful flowers at a show I went to, and he had it on the desk where you pay to get in. And as soon as I looked at it, I said, "How long have you had that plant?" And he said, "Oh, it was a division off a giant plant and it's come straight into bloom." And I thought, that's cheating. That's not like growing it from a young plant and getting it to bloom, because effectively the section that was taken off is already blooming size. And you often get a first flush of blooms with that sort of division, and then you have to wait a couple of years for it to get some new growths that are blooming size on that plant, as opposed to on the original plant that it was taken off of. Anyway, we'll see what happens to that. Looks to be drying up to me, but let's hope the other one gives it a go. So that's my 2 Brassivolas. And this little rescue cat's pushing on a nice spike now. This was in a hell of a state when I got it. Bad news. It's actually 2 plants on the mount. But what I was saying about multiple leads, there's a lead coming down in this direction, that growth, followed by that small one, that was as it recovered, followed by this one, which is big enough to have pushed a spike. But there's another lead here, yeah, with the new growth pushing on. Again, that was its last growth. Not as big as this one, and therefore not blooming size, but the next one could be. And then the separate plant at the bottom was a piece that I didn't actually think was going to grow, because it was in such a dishevelled state. But it's managed to push up one tiny little new growth, and now it's got another one coming there, and that was a new growth there. So in theory that little plant at the bottom is growing in 2 directions as well. But that's going to take quite a while for that one to actually get to a reasonable state. You know, that really was in a bad way, that bit. But the top bit's coming on quite nicely, pushing out new growths, and it's going to bloom. From memory, I think the picture that came with that. I think they're a bright red. They're not huge flowers. I mean, it is a mini cat, so they're not going to be giant blooms, but I think they're a bright red. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, it's once I get those couple of old bulbs off, once their leaves are spent, then I can take that back end off and it'll look a bit tidier then, because the newer leaves that have come are quite good. So it's coming on. I consider it rescued, and maybe down the bottom we'll have to wait and see. So yeah, a little mini cat. That's Chancy Sunset, I think that's called. And this young brassica that I mounted, my other brassica types are all in pots, but as this was a really young plant, I thought I'd actually try one mounted, and it pushed out the roots at the base of that new growth as the new growth started. I mean, that's a typical pattern, and those roots headed straight for the moss and the bark and are sticking out the bottom there. But now, probably a couple of months later, it's pushing some more roots out of the same growth. Now, for me that's unusual, but at the base of the previous growth there is an eye that looks like it's going to move, so we may have another new growth coming out the side. If this one doesn't bloom, that one probably will, because although this is for a brassica quite a small plant, now that doesn't mean it's a young plant, it just means it's not a giant brassica like most of them. This is Chieftain something or other, Chieftain Ludlows, and the actual cross is down there, which I'm not going to pronounce. Verrucosa, we all know that's a smashing brassica, and the other one I've never heard of. But yeah, that's so it's a named cross. I haven't got a clue what the blooms will look like. It was a freebie. We'll have to wait and see, but it's coming on. It's growing well. It's pushing out nice, clean, healthy roots. And some are burying themselves onto the bark, attaching. Some are probably going to stay as aerials. We'll see how it goes. And hopefully another new growth. I think that eye is going to move. We shall see. See, that's got a bump on it. That very new growth has got a bump, but that's just going to be another root, the same as those others. So we'll see how that one comes on. But it's growing well. You know, it's taken, as I call it. And this is probably the last time we'll see the blooms on this, because they are going to go soon. Looking at how long the previous new growth sets of blooms actually lasted, they've probably only got a few days to go. But a lovely little flower, lovely delicate shade of orange with a tinge of either pale orange or yellow, depending on your colour senses. Yeah, I love that. That's a genuine miniature. You know, that's just going to spread slowly but surely across that mount. It's attached itself nicely. And once you get a plant like that on a mount, obviously there's some moss at the base of that plant that has the potential to get soggy and stay soggy in the winter. But because it's got attached to the bark, I can water around the plant and still hydrate it using the attached ones and not actually get the moss in the middle soaking wet. Now, in the summer I'll drown it, that's a different thing altogether, but this time of year you can see, even though that new growth bloomed, that's water damage. Yeah, so, you know, although these things should be able to take water all over them because of where they come from, you know, once you put them in your home environment type thing, or your greenhouse type environment, you've got to watch water sitting in the crown. I mean, that's a delicate new growth. Getting water in there would not be the best of ideas, which is why it's nice to be able to water around the plant this time of year. I mean, in the summertime when it's hot, you know, the plant would be dry within an hour. Even if I actually dunked it in the bucket, it would still dry off. So, but this time of year, take care with the water in the crowns of your delicate new growths, or you will get that sort of thing happening, which is unsightly. It's a dry rot, it hasn't spread, it just did the damage and then gave up. But, you know, that could have had the potential to go down that bulb and get in the plant. So take care, watch your water in your crowns and in your leaf joints in the cold winter weather, when the day lengths are so short that plants don't necessarily get the chance to dry off in those delicate little places. We've all got them. And this is my only bulbophyllum. This is the one that everybody's got, Elizabeth Ann Bucklebury. So a new type of orchid for me. so obviously this is a learning curve. I keep my aerial roots nicely hydrated, and they do like a fair bit of moisture. Now the lower bulbs, that one down there, that one there, and this one here, were all had spikes on when I got it. That one there towards the back, that's its only new growth that's maturing, so maybe that growth will bloom. We'll have to wait and see, but the good news on this one is we've got a new growth coming out on that bulb there, and we've got another new growth coming out there. So I do have at the moment 2 new growths following on from that one. Again, because it's a new plant, I don't know how long those new growths will actually take to mature and bloom. We'll have to wait and see. But you know, I can keep my records up to date and see how it goes, and then I'll know for the future. So yeah, it's coming on. Loads of aerial roots, and I haven't got a clue what's in that pot. But it's in what looks like big chunky bark with some moss on the top. So it should be okay, but at some point in the new year, it's probably going to come out of that pot and go in an open basket with some chunky bark. Then these aerial roots will have something to get hold of and won't dry out so fast. So it'll probably do better that way round. So I will get more bulbophyllums, but I'm going to be very selective. I've got to find ones that have a flower I like, number 1. A flower that lasts a reasonable amount of time, number 2, because some of these are really short-lived, and one that doesn't stink the place out. I don't mind fragrance, but we don't want stinky, and some of these really do hum. That's because they don't know the words. Ha ha. Another monster while I'm at it. This is Dendrobium frederixianum, I think it's pronounced, Friedrichsianum, probably of German or Austrian origin. But this is a beast of a plant, and the new canes on this are monstrous. They have reached terminal velocity, I think is the expression. The canes aren't going to extend anymore. They've got a terminal leaf on them. This is in fact resting. Now I can't do it because I've got the camera in one hand and the beast of a plant in the other hand. But I've teased some of the moss away from the base of this plant. Now that's deliberate because this year I need to rest it. So what I was saying about, you know, when you've got a plant that's on a mount, it's very easy to just give it a trickle of water. See, I can run a little bit of water across the top where those roots are, down that side there, and that little bit down the bottom, and I'll have hydrated the plant slightly, but I won't have got the moss soaking wet. It's supposed to be resting. Now this one was one of the last ones to go into a resting phase because the canes were still growing. So, you know, I kept it going. But it is now semi-resting, I would say. You know, it's getting hardly any water and only on some of the exposed roots. And, you know, it'll get its proper rest after New Year along with all the others. And if that blooms, I've got a feeling that's going to be quite a spectacle. That's a lot of new canes, and they're big. So if I can produce blooms down the length of most of these new canes, that's going to be quite a little show. Again, that one hasn't bloomed for me. So with the rest, we'll see what we can do. And I'll keep you posted, as they say. But it is a beastie. It's another one that's getting to the size limit for the grow space I've got. But if this blooms, it should be good. We shall see. And just so as you don't always think I only film successes, here's a Tolumnia that's died. Now you can see that growth where my finger is. You can see the sogginess, and it's effectively only just hanging in there. It's dead. The other growth is not much better. It was an incredibly young, weak plant when I got it, and although it pushed out some roots, the scale got in that base and effectively destroyed those growing points. So that one's going to go. You're for the hedge. I'll keep the mount because another Tolumnia will go on there one day, probably. That's a shame, actually. That one, Jarac Flyer Cocoa Drop. It's a French nursery. It's got the name Jarac in it, and I think I bought either 4 or 5, and when they arrived they were tiny. Now some of them pulled on quite quickly, and this one never did. It just never got going. If that had been a stronger plant, it would have survived the attack. But you can see it's gone. So yeah, that one's for the hedge. We don't win them all. It's the nature of the game. Whenever I'm filming, I always forget the ones indoors. I mean, obviously they're only in here for a couple of months and then they're back out in the grow room. But this Paphiopedilum's got 2 blooms on it. This is Mordier, and this one's a beauty. That recently opened. That's Magical Venus. Okay, we'll go and have a last look round. You have to put up with the heaters and things. It's early in the morning and I've got to go out all day today, so yeah, we're moving a bit. Okay, last look round for this year basically. You know, we've got the end of 2016. This was my surprise plant that didn't end up getting posted. I won't go over stuff that we did yesterday. This Oncidium Twinkle this is the cinnamon, coming to a close now. Most of the blooms are over. This Encyclia cordigera, it's a named variety. This is changing. I love this. It's first time blooming. Not my spikes, but I've stopped them blasting. That's my claim to fame. That's as they open. They've got that sort of browny green colour to the petals and sepals, and a nice white lip with the purple bit. But as they age, this was the first bloom to open, the lip turns a yellowy colour, and there's a lovely reddy bronzy tinge to the petals and sepals. So this is one of those that changes colour. The Peter Comp just keeps going. That's been in bloom 3 months or so now. The Oncidium that I think's now on Costelli, but it's Sweet Sugar, whatever the bit on the front's called, that's starting to go over now. You can see a few blooms starting to fade, but again, that's been open a nice long time. The other Twinkle at the back there, that's Twinkle Pink. I don't think it's got a proper name other than Pink, which is more like its colour really. The couple of Vandas up there, most of the Vanda spikes, the lovely big pinky one has gone now, that's finished, but lasted well. The orange one's still okay, and that one we saw yesterday. And quite honestly, that's about it. So enjoy your celebrations for the end of 2016, and let's all have a nice growing year in 2017, and let's all keep doing what we enjoy and get some videos out there to share with others. That's what this YouTube game is all about. Okay, so I'll see you all in 2017. Enjoy your celebrations and don't frighten all the pets with the fireworks. If you can have fireworks, go somewhere away, go to a park or something. Go to an organised event. To me that makes so much more sense than the back garden, because that can be dangerous. I have seen fireworks fall over before they go off and decide to disgorge their contents into the watching crowd, which is not the best of ideas. Anyway, enjoy your celebrations. Don't drink too much of the red stuff or whatever coloured stuff you drink. And if you do, I'll see you with a headache on the 1st of January. Bye for now.